Okay, I think we'll start. Good morning. My name is Michael Taylor. I'm here to talk to you for about 20 minutes about what studying music is like in the university. So rather like the flights when you get on, they say this is service for Atlanta and you realise you should be going somewhere else. If you're not here for music, now is the time to leave. I'm also talking purely now about music as a single honour subject and music as a TSM subject. I'm not here to talk about B-Maz-Ed, that's a separate talk. So if you come to Trinity to study music, as I say, you can either study it as pure music, so you'll spend all of your time studying music, or in combination with about 6 or 7 other subjects which are listed in the college literature. And if you study it in combination with another subject, then your time is divided in the first 3 years equally between the 2 subjects. In the final year, you make a decision as to which subject you're going to take as your major, and that occupies you entirely in the final year. In the first year of the 4, you study a broad range of topics, everything from oral training and keyboard harmony and counterpoint, music history, music technology, analysis. In other words, you get a solid grounding in everything. And then in your second year, you begin to specialise. We regard the second year, I suppose, as the sort of tryout year. You choose between music technology, composition, or musicology. And during your second year, you have an introductory course in those. If you wish, you can hedge your bets with specialisation, and you can do a little bit of all of them just to see which might be the best for you to study fully in your final 2 years. Then in those top 2 years, you become exclusively more devoted to your specialisation or specialisations if you're running 2. And the goal of that is in the final year, a large project which accounts for a very large proportion of your overall degree, which will be either a dissertation if you're a musicologist, a composition or a portfolio of compositions if you're a composer, or a technology project if you're a music technologist. And alongside those specializations, you will have further instruction in your specialization. You will also continue with studies of music history and other options that you choose out of a menu of things that we give you at the beginning of each year. Performance can play a part in your final degree in the sense that in your 3rd or 4th years, you can offer a recital of either 20 or 40 minutes duration as I say, an option for your final degree. That's entirely up to you. Performance is not taught within the School of Music, except insofar as you have to do oral training and keyboard harmony in your first 2 years. For those of you who are particularly interested in that, there are optional courses in the top 2 years in oral training and keyboard, which you can pursue if you have a strong interest in that area. Now, university, I suppose, is a little bit different from school in the sense that for every hour you spend in the classroom, we reckon you're going to spend 3 in the library or in the practice rooms doing study and practice for classes that you've had. So on average, you would expect to spend somewhere between 9 and 12 hours a week actually having lectures or classes in the music department. For TSMs, that number obviously is reduced because you have lectures and classes in your other subject. One aspect about Trinity Department of Music is that in general we accept 30 students a year, which is usually split 20 single honour and 10 TSMs. People always ask the question about how many points do I need to get in. This is always a sort of slightly difficult thing to predict. TSMs, what you have to do is to satisfy both departments in terms of points requirements. So you will regularly see that for TSMs, the points are up in the 500 plus area. But this can simply be that you're competing for a very high points combination, such as psychology or something like that. For single honour music, my guess is that you will be looking at somewhere in the region of 450 points. But this is variable from year to year. It's difficult to tell. The year before it was much higher. Depends on all sorts of things, the number of applicants, how difficult the maths paper is, for instance, on the leaving, which always makes a big difference to the overall points situation. Now, I am happy to answer questions. That if there are more things you want me to tell you about the Department of Music, I'm very happy to do it. Sorry, the other thing I did mean to say to you is we only take 20 or 30. We only take 30 students, 20 single honour, 10 TSMs. That means that the classes that you are in are usually small. So for oral training, you would be in a group of 10. Similarly, for keyboard, you would be in a group of 10. And the maximum size you would tend to be in, a group you would tend to be in, is 30 when the whole year meets. This means that, in general, we know the names of all of our students. We run a fairly informal ship, and we like to know how our students are doing, and to generally look after their welfare as best we can. So, are there things you would like to ask me, or areas you would like me to talk more about? Otherwise we can keep this remarkably short. Yes? No. When you come to us for... everybody who applies for music in Trinity will be called to sit the entrance test. On the basis of that test, we then call for interview. And for single honour and TSM, we just interview. We don't require you to play. And at the moment, we don't allocate points on the basis of the interview. But I think that is very likely to come in subsequent years. Any more questions? Yes? Erasmus options ideally take place in the second year. The reason for that is that your third and fourth years taken together are what form your degree. So that if say you're a technologist, for instance, there is a 2-year program in the third and fourth years which leads to the large technology project that I mentioned before. So going away in third year is less desirable, although it is possible. But ideally, you go in your second year. Sorry, I missed the question.
What kind of standard of music did you need before going in?
Standard of music. Are you talking about playing, or are you talking about theoretical standards? Both. In order to get along well in the oral training and keyboard harmony class, you need to have about grade 5 standard on the keyboard. What we understand by that is if we put a hymn tune in front of you, you could play it without taking a lunch break between each chord, if I can say it like that. In other words, you need to be able to play. It can be slow, but it needs to be reasonably fluent. In terms of theory, we really take you back to the beginning and start again. The reason for doing that is that everybody has a different background when they come in. Nobody has a complete grasp of everything, so we go back to the beginning. We start with a course of rudiments, and we move very rapidly through the first year to bring that up to the sort of standard that we need. So what we're looking for in interview is not that you can demonstrate that you know what the minor subdominant is or something like that. What we're looking for really is, first of all, a keen interest in the literature of music. That's very important. In other words, that you actually have got out, you play, maybe you play, but you certainly go to concerts. In other words, you have an interest that will sustain you through 4 years of study in music. And the second thing we look for is we look for a good ear. So part of the entrance test will be a short oral test, and we're looking there for evidence that you have an ear. Now, we recognise, of course, that ear may not, at the point where you take the entrance test, have been trained yet, but there are still ways in which we can detect a good ear. And we figure if you have an interest in the repertoire and are motivated to come and study music for 4 years, and you have a good ear, then the rest we can teach you. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes?
What kind of jobs did most students end up?
Interesting you should ask that. I was just looking back on a list of graduates the other day and discovering that one of the financial directors of one of the biggest banks in London is actually one of our graduates. So it can be virtually anything. We've had many people, of course, go into music-related professions. Some teach. If I'm thinking, just pausing for a moment on teaching, we think that asking you to make a vocational decision at 17, 18 is a difficult one, in the sense that it's better really to study a subject and then perhaps get a top-up qualification if you're thinking of teaching in terms of the HDiv or something like that. So we have some people who go into teaching, some people go into playing. So we have some very distinguished performers. The leader of the Austrian Radio Symphony Orchestra is one of our graduates, for instance. Some people go completely outside, some people become academics. We have some very distinguished academics, both here in Ireland, in the UK, in the States, some in Europe as well. One of the areas in which students are finding increasing employment is in areas that spin off from music technology. So there are a lot of people involved in film and TV production, for instance, which they got into through their studies in music technology. Some people become software developers. Some people are interested in the ways that sound is attached to image. They go into that sort of area. So essentially what we're talking here is not a vocational degree. It's something which perhaps allows you to discover areas in yourself that you haven't yet figured out, and that many of these will lead to employment opportunities. We have a very good rate in terms of employment for our graduates. Are you just being shy, or really have I covered everything? I can't believe that I have. Don't be too perturbed about the entrance test. There's a dummy run at this lunchtime to give you an idea what to expect. We don't expect you to have all the knowledge at this point. Think of those things that I said that we're looking for. We're looking for a keen knowledge of the repertoire, some interest, in other words, in what you would be studying for these 4 years, and we're looking for this other factor, which is that you have an ear. That's very important to us, because a lot of what we do is predicated on the assumption that you have a good ear. And I have to say, one of the categories of student coming in who often have the very best ears is the trad players, often far better than the so-called classically trained students. Any more questions? Yes?
For the TSN, would the interview have to do with your other subjects?
No. There are only, as far as I'm aware, there are only 3 subjects in the university that interview. That's music, drama, and remedial linguistics, speech therapy. I think nobody else interviews. So no, it will be purely concerned with music. So in other words, if we accept you, after the interview is over, you will get a letter from admissions which will say you are accepted or not accepted. Once you're accepted for music, then that essentially makes your choice, say for music and French, for instance, that renders that on. But on the other hand, if you're not accepted for music, it would knock you out of the TSM combinations involving music. Okay? Well, you must be a very informed bunch. Yes? Assessment is a mixture of continuous assessment and examination. Some subjects, the balance of those is different, but broadly speaking, it adheres roughly to 40% continuous assessment, 60% examination. But certain subjects are not terribly amenable to examination, so they could be entirely done by continuous assessment. In the second year, there tend to be fewer exams and more continuous assessment. Simply remember what I said about second year. That's the year when you're testing the waters in terms of what a specialization might be. So we tend to have fewer examinations there. It's producing a nice tone. I have a suggestion to make, and that is if you haven't already visited the dining hall across the other side of the front square, you will find some students there who will give you far more information on what it's like to be a student in the Department of Music from your point of view rather than my point of view, and they will be only too happy to fill you in on any further questions you might have that you are either too shy or whatever you don't want to ask now. They'll be there all day and are very happy to answer your questions. Yes?
When you talk there about how you choose between composition, musicology, or technique,
yes.
if you say take musicology, could you still take analytic components or mechanical components?
Yes. In general, you would study harmony and counterpoint as compulsory subjects in years 1 and 2. But then in the 3rd and 4th years, there would usually be options available, particularly in counterpoint, which usually run on a 2-year cycle. So in other words, in either your 3rd or your 4th year, you would be able to take those options. Basically, you have a single honour has 60 credits to fill up. Now, in your final year, for instance, 20 of those credits go straight to your technology, composition, or musicology project. Then a certain number go to music history. But there's usually about 20 credits of free choices in final year. And there is a menu of things put up, and you select from that. But yes, you can even, if you're a technologist and you secretly like to do a bit of musicology, you can even become what we call a minor elective in musicology as well. So it tries to be flexible, encouraging you to specialise in the area where you can show yourself best. But there are options then to allow you to keep sampling other things that interest you. I think we'll wrap it up there. Okay, thank you all very much.